It is yet another morning. A fine welcome to the Good Morning Sierra program hosted here at your national broadcaster SLBC. This program starts your every morning from Mondays to Friday with a proper clarification on things that involve national concern. This is the Good Morning Sierra Leone program, and we are your presenters, Julian Kuruma
and Mohamed Kamal. Over to our quote for today is from Nelson Henderson, and it says, "The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit." Coming up in our programs for today, Parliament enacts Gender Empowerment Bill. President's Bill launches the Productive Social Safety Nets and Youth Employment Projects. And the Lumley Government Hospital and Peninsula Hospital and partner to provide free surgical procedures in Western area.
As always, you are invited to send in your questions and comments to the mobile numbers displayed right there on your screen. And find us also on Facebook at SLBC Live, Channel 31. This is, of course, the Good Morning Sierra Leone program. Good morning again and welcome to the Good Morning Sierra Leone program. Let's quickly direct our attention to our first issue on the Good Morning Sierra Leone program this morning. Parliament has enacted the Gender Empowerment Act 2021 and will be sent to President Bill for approval. The bill seeks to address gender unbalance by making provision for increased elective position for women to provide for the promotion of gender equality in employment and training amongst others. Now to give us an understanding about the bills and proper rectifications that have been made to the bill, I have in the studio Charles Vandy, Director of Gender and Children's Affairs. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Julian. Good morning, Sierra Leoneans. It's a pleasure having you here.
Now this bill, the Gender Empowerment Bill, I must say it has been a much anticipated bill for Parliament to, talk on it, debate upon it and enact it. And see, it has been done. Many people have been waiting for this day and now it's here. But I am sure that before it was enacted, there was rectifications or amendments that were made to the bill. Could you enlighten us so that we understand what exactly is in this bill?
Thank you very much. I think yesterday history was made for the people of Sierra Leone. The long anticipated law that will change the gender and development narratives in this country actually happened. The bill that actually got to Parliament was talking about Gender Empowerment Bill. So some of the amendments actually has to do with even the short title. So it's now Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act 2022. You will recall that last year, October, the Honorable Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs, Honorable Mante Tarawali, tabled the Gender Empowerment Bill in Parliament. So that's 13 months, but we finally got to the finish line yesterday. So the short title changed, and even the long title, like you were reading, some amendments were being done to it, to even include structures. And when we talk about structures, we are talking about from local level onto national level, and we are talking about public offices. So already public offices, public elections are already defined either in the Public Elections Act or in the Constitution. The other thing also that this law, the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, is bringing on is that at least 30% appointive positions are going to be given to women for private and public positions. The private, you may want to ask, so this is an all-encompassing law. The private, anybody that is more than 15 workers is now going to ensure that minimum of 30% of their workers, and also progressing to even those in decision making, should be women. So when you get to that, I mean, for constitutional provisions, you know the supreme authority of the president. So that was actually well debated to ensure that the provisions and the powers of the president cannot be touched. So what happened in that case? There's a clause that says His Excellency the President may take due consideration in his appointments to ensure that at least 30% of the appointees are women. But for non-presidential appointments, minimum of 30% or at least 30% of them should be women. Then we also came to the aspect of women's empowerment. In the area of women's empowerment, they are saying public and private bodies, employers, should ensure that minimum of 30% of their appointments are women. And also take measures to ensure that at least 30% of their membership are within decision-making level. The other thing that is also very important in this law is that we have now raised the bar for maternity leave from 12 weeks to 14 weeks. We have also stated, you know, the news that is moving around all over now about sexual harassment in workplaces. So now this law has also captured that the leadership of those entities should ensure they prohibit sexual harassment in all its forms. The other thing that is also in this law is talking about equal pay. So if you are in a situation wherein jobs of equal skills, competence, women have it, there is no way you are going to say you are going to pay a woman less and pay a man higher when they have the same skills and competence. So that is also in this law. In the area of education, employment, scholarship, training, is also saying women should be given the opportunity. Because if you don't allow them to train, you are not going to have quality of people that you now say, oh no, they don't have the skills, so how can I employ them? So it's a progressive and developmental law, and it's also now going to ensure that it changes some of those. If you look at the long title, addressing the gender imbalances. For far too long, women forming almost 52% of the population have been discriminated in the areas of political, social, economic, and even in the cultural spheres. So these are some of the things that are coming in this law that is also very important. It's also saying under the women's empowerment that you cannot dismiss a woman because she is pregnant. We've seen far too long, you say, oh, by the time she carries the pregnancy for 9 months, go for maternity, I mean, our job is went behind and all of those things. So the law is now very affirmative in those lines. And the other thing also that this law is putting forward is the aspect about the creation of a gender unit. We have gender focal points in ministries, departments, and agencies, but some of them are not in decision-making level. So therefore, they cannot influence any change within their institutions themselves. So what this is now suggesting, gender units are now going to be established, and those gender units are going to be placed in the planning directorate, whom we know, whoever heads the planning directorate attains management meeting of that institution. And they can now ensure that they integrate gender issues into their policies, their laws, and their action plans, and also to ensure that they collect gender disaggregated data. And these are all things now wherein we will now know what is happening in various line ministries. The third thing also that is very important is the aspect about gender responsive budgeting. You know, gender responsive budgeting is not a separate budget for women, separate budget for men, separate budget for boys and girls. It's a budget that's going to integrate the needs and concerns of women, men, boys and girls into the budget itself. So you can have a gender responsive budget statement that will actually help in this direction. Already, the Ministry of Finance has started with 5 key ministries for the 2023 budget, where gender responsive budgeting is going to be practiced. Above that, we have gender steering committee in this law. The gender steering committee is going to comprise several ministries, departments and agencies. And those ones are going to be responsible to ensure that they collect information based on what is coming from those ministry, departments and agencies, from the public and private entities, and then they will internalize it, submit it to the minister, and the minister will present that to Parliament as to what is happening in the gender landscape. They will include challenges that they are going through in ensuring that they meet the at least 30% representation at all levels in their institutions. They will tell us what measures have they put in place, and they will also tell us what recommendations they have. And so several things are incorporated. The access to finance is also very important for women. Access to finance is going to happen. It's not only for the elites, it's also for the rural women. So everything that is being done in this law is in the spirit from the structure, from the rural level up to national level.
So it's the 14 months of maternal leave starts after the female employee puts to bed?
So yes, maternity, I mean, you can't take maternity when you have not put to bed. So that is the understanding. And
because just to bench on what he asked, you know, some ladies, some women go through trying pregnancy. So oftentimes they have to take maternity leave even during pregnancy. Maybe they'll have to be in a hospital because doctor might have advised them to stay in bed. So we are asking now, does it include that? Will they be having the opportunity to start their maternity leave from that point and going forward?
Even apart from the maternity leave, even men have right to sick leave. So we do not want to combine the two. If I go to the hospital and the doctor advised me that I need to have 2 weeks rest, I think that as a man, that is also due for me. So what we are saying, if it is, you have women who can even work up to a week before they deliver. So the maternity, we want to start it when they put to bed and we start the counting. But what we are saying, if the doctor prescribed that this woman indeed has some other things that will require some rest, I mean, those are all things that are due her. You don't need to circumvent to say, no, you've already spent part of that when you were pregnant, so why are you taking the other one? No, we don't want to get into that.
So 14 months, it's quite a very, because in other countries that are not like progressive as Sierra Leone, they don't have this much time. 14 months, I believe it's a big congratulations to Parliament for having actually done that. Now let's go forward to talk about, you spoke about the equal pay, which I believe is a very key topic for women, and they've been wanting that to happen for a long time. Now we've reached to this point where Parliament has enacted that bill. It's left with the President now to sign it, so it will be an actual bill. So when that is done, is it going to happen that very instance that President signs it? Are they going to receive an equal pay as to men?
Already, when we were having discussions on that particular clause, it's not overtly happening in Sierra Leone. But then, with technical support from other partners, they have sat through our laws and they did not see that provision written verbatim. Some may want to take advantage of it. So it is good that its existence in the law is more important and the implementation following after. So now that it's in the law, I mean, even private bodies, we defined yesterday, you were following Parliament, and Parliament was saying any organization that recruits more than 25 workers, this law is applicable to you. And the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs is going to make regulations for that. So what is suggesting is that it has not been overtly happening in Sierra Leone, but it's a step in the right direction. And like the maternity leave you mentioned, I think it's the best practice now, ILO and World Bank, for us to increase it from 12 weeks to 14 weeks. So Sierra Leone is now part of those progressive countries that have actually done that.
All right, we thank you very much, Director of Gender and Children's Affairs, Charles Vandy. Now, there's still Good Morning Sierra Leone coming to you from the SLBC. It's nice that we sometimes learn from our past to actually pave the way to the future. So for that very reason, let's take this day in history.
November 16th, 1966. In Ohio, Dr. Sam Shepard is acquitted in a second trial of charges that he murdered his pregnant wife, Marilyn. Shepard served 10 years behind bars for the 1954 murder before his release and second trial. 1933. The United States and the Soviet Union established diplomatic relations. That move ends years of estrangement between the two countries after the Russian Revolution. 2001. In Washington, D.C., more fallout from America's anthrax scare. Following the September 11th attacks, investigators find a second letter containing the deadly germ, known to have been sent to Capitol Hill. This time, the letter is addressed to Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont.
I'm hoping that the one bright light in all of this might be that this letter will give us further evidence to find out who is doing this.
But the anthrax mailings, which killed 5 people and sickened more than a dozen others, remain unsolved. 1981.
I'm part of your life. I live here. I'm real. Can't switch to another station.
Actor William Holden is found dead in his apartment in Santa Monica, California. Holden, whose roles include Network, Sabrina, and Sunset Boulevard, was 63 years old. And 1959.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
In New York, the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, The Sound of Music, opens on Broadway. Today in history, November 16th. Camille Bohannon, The Associated Press.
Welcome to the program Good Morning Sierra Leone. President Bio has launched the Productive Social Safety Nets and Youth Employment Project. The project is funded by the government of Sierra Leone. The World Bank and the UNICEF is geared towards improving access to social safety nets and income-generating opportunities for targeted beneficiaries. The project comprises of 5 components: SSN cash transfers and provision of economic inclusion support, production, labor-intensive public works, and life skills support for youth, employment and entrepreneurship support for youth, support to youth-led household enterprises, among others. For more on these issues, I have in the studio Raymond Carter, Senior Director of Programs, NACSA. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please tell us more about this productive social safety nets?
Yes, thank you very much. This project is a successor project to the Social Safety Net project, which was just trying to lift people out of poverty. So the model was different. It was just giving people money through cash transfers. That was a $30 million project. Okay. It was a very critical catalyst that helped people move from poverty to some form of economic productivity. But in hindsight, we realized and engaged the world, like to say that we want to re-engineer the project so that it will have a productive component. So we didn't want to just be giving people money. We wanted to have a productivity component. Then also what we wanted to do was we wanted to capitalize on the youth budget. So the youth budget is a good thing, but it can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. So we wanted to make sure that the youths are brought into this new project. So that's why it has the youth employment component. So what we have done is that we will still continue to address the needs of those that were in the previous targets, beneficiary demographics, but now we have been very intentional in bringing youth into this new project. And for that we have different components that are addressing them, like the productive public works, labor intensive public works. We have the component that will support youth entrepreneurship, and we have another component that will help to link youth to employment and employability mechanisms. So that's what we've done. But the fifth component is one that is latent. It will only be triggered if we have an emergency that we need to respond to, like a global shock or a pandemic or something major. They will trigger that particular component of the SAC to go back, will revert to giving cash transfers in those circumstances.
All right, Raymond Carter, Senior Director of Programs at NACSA. Now, this intro I have says for targeted beneficiaries. Who exactly are these targeted beneficiaries?
Yes, the targeted beneficiaries, like I said, will continue on with the very vulnerable. So you're looking at women, you're looking at persons with disability. In fact, this project is very intentional. We've made sure that at least 30, and in some instances, some components, 40% are persons with disabilities, very surgical. We're also making sure that most of the components are targeting 50% of women. In fact, there is one that is 60% women. So previously, it would be those that usually will fall within the safety net floor beneficiary target list, the old, very vulnerable people. But in this one, we've expanded the scope, like I said, to include youths. And I can't emphasize this point, enough, because youths are now about, depending on the data you want to accept, 62 to 70% of our population is huge. So this is good. I mean, having a youthful population is a good thing. Like I said earlier, it could be a blessing and a curse. So we want to make sure that we make it into a blessing. So we want to tap into this youth bulge and make these youths employable and have skills and transform their lives and transition them into a component of a population that is supporting productivity and livelihood issues.
But let's get in deep into this productive social safety net and youth empowerment project. To understand it properly, is it like youth are going to present to you an entrepreneurship plan, an innovative plan, and you vet them to see if it has any merit, and then it will fund their project, or you'll just unpick youth from various spheres of life and to help them?
Right. So like was the case with the SSN, we don't do any of these without targeting, which is why we have an institutional arrangement. We work with Statistics Sierra Leone that have all the data, right? And so they give us the listening on the people in the population that are most deserving. So they will work with NACOM, and the Ministry of Youth. These are the institutions that have the data on youth, and so we'll work with them. So once we have determined the target population through a very transparent means, then we will now work with those youths under the support for youth entrepreneurship. Those youths that have innovative skills, or probably some of them have business plans that just need support. So we'll support those. This is really not to have very high-tech youths, because we appreciate the fact that most of the youths are not highly skilled or not highly educated. So in fact, there is one component that even just targets youths that have as basic as primary level education. So, bringing them up to that level. There is this component that will have IT platforms to link youths with necessary social services so that they can become employable. So to link them with employers, to inform them of employment opportunities.
Precisely. I
etc.
think it happened yesterday. It started happening yesterday.
Yes, Raymond Kata, what particular package do you have for the people with disability?
So the programming style we use at NACSA is non-discriminatory programming. So what we've done is to ensure that right across the entire spectrum of this project, we incorporate persons with disability, 30%, 40%, as the case may be. So they are benefiting from the entire spectrum of the project. So it's not like we have had a particular cluster that, we don't want to discriminate against them, but we make sure that in every component, right through this intervention spectrum, we have persons with disability, and we are very intentional. So we make sure there are percentages and figures that are ascribed to that particular demographic.
But let's talk about life plan of this, the time frame. Sorry, the word lost in my head a bit there. Let's talk about time frame of this project. Is it going to last for the foreseeable future, or do you have a designated time frame that you have for implementing or helping youth? Like you said, the youth make up a very large scale or percentage in our population, so they need continuous help. So does this whole initiative has a designated time, or would it run for the foreseeable future?
Right. As much as we want it to run forever, it has a project lifespan, and that project lifespan will be June 2027. So it's a 5-year project for now. And don't forget the SSN project, which expired like this June. After that, we have the successor project, which is this. So I will be very optimistic to say there is every likelihood we will have another successor project after this. But if we are to limit our conversation to this project, then I want to say it's a 5-year project that terminates in June of 27.
Okay. Now, you spoke about the SSN cash transfer, which has been in existence for a while, am I right?
Yes.
How exactly did that work? And tell us about the benefits it has provided for youth.
So the cash transfer was an intervention made necessary because of the COVID-19 and inter alia, even Ebola. So I want to be frank to say the cash transfer model you can trace way back to 2014-ish or so, 2017. So it has been evolving, and then this one we have, that is the $30 million project, came on the margins of the COVID and other shocks, and including the Russia-Ukraine war. So that model was just to provide money for the very vulnerable people. And I'm going to confess that it did not really zoom in on youths like this new project has. So that was just, you target people using some models that are supported by Statistics Sierra Leone. Once they are determined eligible, they'll be part. So it was women, it was persons with disability, it was youths, it was old, everyone was in that. It was a hodgepodge at that time. So now we have said that because we were not intentional about the youths, they were just part of the process. But this time we want to recalibrate and said no, we should be very intentional about the youth, which is why you have the youth component. So previously it was very vulnerable people that were below the poverty line.
Okay, so what exactly did you learn from this cash transfer?
Well, in fact, the immediate lesson learned from the cash transfer was that don't just be giving people money. Yes, it was a quick lifeline. I'm going to tell you the truth. There are some people that really need money, but you can continue to just be giving people money, which is why now the economic inclusion component has been added to it, which is you give you money, but we want to see you use that money to do other economic re-entry engagements. So that's a key lesson learned. The other lesson learned is that the Anti-Corruption Commission is very critical in this implementation of these programs, because we're talking about high volume of cash, right? And you know, it's easy for people to beat up on institutions, but these are real money, $30 million, and you're just pumping it out, and you're using other institutions that are helping you to give this money. But so a key lesson learned is that we are now trying to move away from giving cash to using e-payment systems. It's hard because these people are not, mostly the population we're dealing with are not people that have bank accounts, are not people that are really engaging in the formal sector. So it's hard. But we have said hard is not impossible. So we are going to do the heavy lifting to ensure that moving forward we will try, at least even if it's a mixed method, to ensure that we engage in some form of e-payments. So we're exploring those because we don't want to be dealing with the perception of corruption and having to be dealing with all of those issues. So that's another key lesson that was learned. Another lesson learned is that I think that it is good to always have a productive component in this thing.
So can this be best explained as to how you will incorporate this knowledge into this new project?
So like I said, right now there is a small project with a grant of about almost $300,000, which is to support NACSA to engage in e-forms of payment. And I think we are going to be doing that together with the Bank of Sierra Leone. To be honest, sitting here right now, the fine prints of that are yet to crystallize, but I'm happy to come back here and tell you that that's one major thing.
All right, we thank you very much, Raymond Carter, the Senior Director of Programs at NACSA. This is, of course, the Good Morning Sierra Leone program coming to you live from the SLBC. Let's take a very snappy break. We'll be right back. Again, I say welcome to you and thanks for lending us your attention. Let's quickly go over to our next issue. Lumley Government Hospital is the only government hospital in western part of Freetown providing general services to the wide catchment population. Due to the closure of the theatre a year ago, many patients have not been able to benefit from surgical procedures at cost-effective fees. As a result of that, Lumley Government Hospital and Peninsula Hospital have decided to partner with Dr. Alexandra Lupin, a renowned general surgeon and gastrologist from Canada, to provide free surgical procedure. Now, in the studio this morning, I have very good doctor, Dr. Alexandra Lupin. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for having me. And it's an immense joy for me to be in the motherland and to be received with open arms.
All right.
Thanks again for having me, sir.
You're very welcome. Now let's talk about the vast, I know that you are very knowledgeable in a series of surgeries that you'll be doing here, but what particular ones are you capable of, I should say that, and do you think that you can operate with the equipment that we have here? Because as we all know, we don't have everything here, especially the medical devices, medical instruments to actually do extensive surgeries. So which ones are you going to be particularly focusing on?
Well, to answer your first question, what am I capable of doing? As a general surgeon, I am specialized in traumatology, meaning to make it easier for you, dealing with broken people. I mean, people involved in car crashes or accidents. Also, I have a specialty in laparoscopic and gastroenterology as well, which allows me to see different patient and open my field of expertise. So as a general surgeon, you're supposed to be able to adapt. So to answer your second question, am I going to be able with the equipments that you have here in Sierra Leone? Of course, I'll have to adapt and adapt in a big manner. Like, you know, I've been here before. This is my second visit here. I was at the Christ the King Hospital last year, and I've seen, you know, the equipments, and I did adapt. But apparently, the Lumley Hospital at the Peninsula is probably, I'm not sure yet because I haven't visited the site yet, it's probably better equipped. And I think I'm going to adapt and be able to focus on mainly the need of general surgery, meaning I'm not talking about, you know, my specialization, which is, you know, doing laparoscopic surgeries and gastroenterology, because we don't have those things yet, even though that's one of my dreams to have this thing implemented here. But we'll be dealing with hernias, varicocele, so also some more specialized cases like ENT cases, thyroidectomy for goiters, and such and such.
So doctor, what fascinated you to do charity work in Sierra Leone?
Gosh, you have very good questions. So I think I was born, since I remember I was just a kid, maybe 5 years old. So my plan was, first of all, I'm lying. When my mother used to ask me what I want to do when I was grown up, I always told her, I want to be the president.
Okay.
So I guess being a surgeon, she's also kind of being a president as well. But this is just a joke apart. I've always wanted to help people. As long as I remember, I was an organizer when I was a kid. Begging my mom to help, you know, poor kids, bringing them home and feed them. And then when I was in medical school, I remember there was a earthquake in Mexico City. That's where I first started. I don't remember what, maybe in 1984 maybe, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when I started, you know, actively participating in doing humanitarian work. And the second big time was in Haiti, where I was born in 2010. So I started, and then since then it's history. I've been to many other parts of the world, including other parts of Africa, Rwanda, for example, and I don't want to start by saying what I'm doing and why I'm here without thanking my dear friend and colleague Rebecca Caspri, which is thanks to her that I'm here today. She's a nurse from Canada, but she's Sierra Leone, and she was the one who organized everything for me. And then asking me, listen, doctor, I know that you do humanitarian work. What about coming to Sierra Leone? So, but yeah, there's a lot of people that I have to thank. Those organizers, like a friend of yours, Bami Bailey, not to mention Dr. Nathaniel Williams, Dr. Samba Jallo, to name a few. And it's a large group of people organizing this. I'm just a little piece of that puzzle and trying to do good.
All right, Doctor, you've thanked people that helped you to come here. We should also thank you because, you know, offering the services, as you know, we have limited doctors here, but you offering your expertise is a very commendable job. Now, but the Lumley Government Hospital and the Peninsula Hospital. Those are two separate places that you will have to be offering your expertise on. I wonder, are you the only person who came, or are there other people who are going to be helping you? Because it's going to be a load on you. I dare say you'll not even have time for fun. So do you have any other people helping you to actually go through the surgeries?
Yes, we do. Like I mentioned, those previous physicians that I mentioned, Dr. Natalian Williams, Dr. Jallo, and other that I don't know their names, are going to be part of the medical surgical teams and OBGYN as well. So I'm not alone in that. But I think I'm going to be the only specialist of the group.
Okay, so the reason why I ask is because yours is I don't know if there's also a general surgeon and also the gastroenterologist, because I believe this word or this profession is not very plenty in Sierra Leone. So you are the only one who's going to be operating, or are those doctors have the expertise to actually perform this surgeries also? If it's to your knowledge, of course.
To my knowledge, I don't think so, but in terms of gynae services, gynae procedures, and other more common surgical stuff like hernias, those people are more than capable of doing those. But of course, I'd be involved in doing hopefully gastroscopies, colonoscopies, which is what a gastroenterologist does, and myself as a surgeon, those things combined will help actually prevent diseases that I don't think people do here as a prevention for colon cancer, doing preventive colonoscopies. Those are things that eventually I would like to implement here, but while I'm here, of course I'm going to have make contact with other colleagues and other sites that have those equipment to be able to, those patients that I'll be screening, if I should see one case of suspicious colon cancer, for instance, I can direct them and then even do it for them at cost effective rates.
Right. We thank you very much for being on the program, Dr. Alexandra Lupin. Continue to be on the program. I know more questions. Lubin. Thank you. Dr. Alexandra Lubin, thank you very much for being in the program. Now let's skedaddle over to you, my good man, Raymond Carter, the Senior Director of Program NACSA. So now, has it started? Have you opened up shop to actually start to, try and help youth who have innovative ideas, or it's going to happen a couple of weeks or a couple of months from now?
All right. So the start of this is technically once the World Bank has triggered the SAC, means the funds are available, and it will not start immediately because first of all we have the World Bank mission. It ends this week, but even alongside the mission, institution arrangements and other project implementation arrangements are going on. I will hazard to say that technically speaking, the project has already been launched, meaning the project is ready to go actually. But we have the World Bank mission because what we are trying to do is we're trying to make sure that all the precursors to the implementation are done well. The NACOM, MOYA, Start SL, NACSA staff are part of the mission, trying to make sure that we're plugging the gaps and bringing together all the lessons learned from the previous project and trying to make sure that this project is implemented with less issues, and we enhance the accountability and mechanisms and ensure that we have optimal programmatic impact.
All right. Optimal program impact should also involve the provinces, because when we talk about Sierra Leone, most people just leave their attention to Freetown. So how would this project, it's a lot of money really, and it's for the youth, and youths are also in the provinces. So how will this very initiative factor in the youth in the provinces?
Thank you very much. In fact, this brings me to where I should pivot a bit. So NACSA is implementing 5 different projects, and this World Bank one is just one of it. But interestingly, the World Bank project, the SSM, is the only one that is implemented in all 16 districts. So, so riding on the back of the now expired project, this successor project will follow that same model. So we'll be implementing in all 16 districts. So this has the geographical scope is very wide. It's 16 districts. It's going to be implemented across the country. But other projects are limited to certain areas of the country. But this one is implemented in all.
Okay, so how sustainable is this project for the benefit of youths in Sierra Leone?
So now we have to use some programming language here, right?
Okay. Don't worry, keep up.
The program is meant to serve as a catalyst, and the catalytic effect of this intervention is what will be sustainable. So we are hoping that as a result of the different components, the youths will have been empowered and to now be involved in their own sustainability and survival mechanisms. So if you ask for the sustainability of the project expires in 5 years, but the derivative, the outcomes of this project might last for very long periods. But we are hoping that it will serve as a critical catalyst for us to achieve the human capital development goals of the government and those that have to do with youth empowerment. So that's really what I'll say towards that.
All right, we thank you very much, Raymond Carter, the Senior Director of Programs at NACSA. Let's quickly pivot to you, my good Dr. Alexandra Lidubin. Now, you touched on an important area, colon cancer. It's something I believe is snatching away a lot of men in Sierra Leone, but we don't even have an idea of what it is and how it can be treated. Now, for my very self, I have only heard about this in movies. I've done some research about it, and I understand that if it is traced at a very early point, it can be treated. So expand our understanding about colon cancer first of all.
That is an excellent question, my friend. So, obviously, colon cancer is one of the worst pathology, if I can put it that way in the word. It doesn't prevent or choose one race over another. So, it is here, but it's not diagnosed because we don't have, like I said again, a way to prevent them. But it is preventable and it is curable, and that's the one thing also. Like I mentioned, having I have a friend of mine here who does a colleague of mine here who does colonoscopy and gastroenterology. But even though he finds those cancers while he's doing his colonoscopy, I don't think there is anyone performing those kind of surgeries, which is one of my specialty. For me, I can call it beside appendectomies, cholecystectomies, colon cancer is for me my bread and butter. And I'm pretty sure we'd have enough. If I have enough instrument to open the belly, the abdomen, I can cure colon cancer if it is found at an early stage, which is why the involvement of preventive colonoscopy for people over 50s is important.
Okay, let's get to talk about how you've given us, and I must say it's a breath of fresh air to actually know that you can operate and actually cure it. Now let's talk about the preventative measure. For men, what exactly do we need to stay away from, eat, or do to actually get us to not actually see that or experience that in the later part of our life? Because I believe it's in, or maybe it does happen to young people, but I believe colon cancer affects men at the later part of their life. Am I right or wrong?
Men and women, and it's hereditary as well, and it has a lot to do with diet. So obviously we're going to be seeing more and more colon cancer in Africa due to the diet that is becoming more westernized. So the way to prevent it is make sure that we eat fruits and vegetables, stay away from fast food, and men usually, the reason that that's a good question. When you mentioned that men are more affected, it's not because men are more affected, but men are more stubborn, right? So they'll have some rectal bleeding, but they'll say, oh, that'll pass, we'll wait. Whereas women will seek for advice and consult at an earlier stage. But even if that should happen, I had that discussion with a colleague of mine, telling me those cases when you find them, it's at a end stage disease already, and there's nothing to do. So obviously the best case scenario here is first of all to have preventive colonoscopies, men and women age 50 and over, and then cure them. See a small little polyp, which is, the polyps is the one that becomes later on a cancer. So if you have that small little polyp that I do myself, I can see it, remove it, and then do a follow-up, let's say, depending on the type of polyp it is, either 1, 3, or 5, or 10 years, depending, and the follow-up will also vary depending on the family history.
Okay, I'm sure that our viewers have understood a very large extent to the explanation that you've given us. Thank you very much, Dr. Alexandra Dubin. This is where we end the program this hour, but just before we go, a reminder of our quote of the day, and it's from Nelson Anderson. And it says, the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. So do things more, don't expect to have benefits in return. We have been your presenters for the program this morning. I am Julian Koroma.
And I am Mohamed Kamba.
Abundant thanks to our producers and our guests who came here this very early morning to give us all of this explanation. This is where the Good Morning Sierra Leone ends for today. Bye-bye.
Looking to get rid of HPV warts? If you've been dealing with nasty HPV warts, then you know just how embarrassing and painful they can be. In this video, you're going to discover how to remove warts safely and effectively at home. Tip number 1 is start treating your warts as soon as you see symptoms. That sounds very common sense, but the sooner you treat them, the faster your warts will go away. Tip number 2 is don't miss a single day of treatment. This may seem like another common sense point, but just one day of mistreatment can give enough time for your warts to come back with a vengeance. So make sure that you treat them continuously without missing a single day. The first one is aloe vera and honey, which have antiviral and anti-inflammatory effects and to help get rid of warts. Just use 1 tablespoon of aloe vera gel and 1 tablespoon of honey. Mix into paste and use a cotton ball to apply the solution onto your warts. Repeat up to 3 times per day until warts are gone. Another remedy is castor oil and baking soda, which has been known to work well for a beginning stage wart infection. These two are both antimicrobial and antiviral. Just mix 1 tablespoon baking soda with 2 tablespoons of castor oil together. Apply the solution onto the area where your warts are and let sit for 30 minutes. You can apply it 2 to 3 times per day. You can also use over-the-counter products from the store that contain salicylic acid. These can help, but are most effective on new warts. Often, it will not get rid of mature warts, but only diminish size of wart, and it will grow back in 1 to 2 weeks. So usually something more powerful is required. If your warts are as bad or worse than what you see in this photo over here, chances are the treatments I just mentioned won't cure your warts in a quick enough time. To learn about a more powerful wart remover that you can use at home, go to StopNastyWarts.com. You can also get a free bottle offer for a limited time. It works to remove warts on feet, hands, fingers, legs, and even your personal areas. You're going to be shocked when you see just how fast it clears your warts, and you don't have to spend hours per day fooling around with it either, like other treatments require. See the Wart Troll results for yourself. Go to www.stopnastywarts.com right now. Please give this video a thumbs up.